Hello, everyone. This is Recap Our Studio, a full recap of Hocus Pocus, released in 1993. If you enjoy this video and want to see more from us, click that subscribe button and the bell to know anytime we upload a new video. Although Hocus Pocus was considered a flop during its original theatrical release in 1993, only bringing in around $39 million on a budget of $28 million, it's since become one of the most popular and rewatched movies around the Halloween season. Its sustained popularity over the last 29 years has led Disney to release a sequel to the original film Hocus Pocus to streaming on Disney Plus on September 30th. So to prepare for the sequel, we're going to take a look back on the original 1993 film and recap everything that went down. But if you haven't watched Hocus Pocus already, make sure to watch it first before continuing with our recap. The movie opens in 1963 in Salem, Massachusetts, where we see a young man named Thackeray Binks jolting awake as what appears to be a witch runs across his window. Upon awakening, he notices his little sister Emily is no longer in her bed beside him, so he rushes outside to search for her from the woods. He sees a cloud of violet smoke rising, which is a known sign which is conjuring, as well as Emily being lured towards it or the witch from outside his window, whom he promptly follows after to the witch's cottage while peering through the window. He's nearly seen by three witches when a friend, Sarah and Mary Sanderson, who have captured Emily in an attempt to restore their youth as they brew a potion transcribed in their book of spells that will enable them to suck out her life force just before they can have her drink the potion. However, Thackeray interrupts those who haven't crawled in through a window and knocks Sarah and Mary down by hitting them with a large pot containing the potion before pouring it onto the floor. But as he goes to save Emily, he's hindered when a friend and the witches successfully steal her youth. They then turn their attention back to Thackeray, and rather than kill him, they conjure a spell that transforms him into a black cat and forces him to live forever with the guilt of how many let his sister die immediately following his transformation. However, the witches are confronted and captured by the people of Salem, led by Thackeray's parents, who look to hang them for their crimes. Before they're killed, they conjure one last spell. And with that, the sisters are hanged, leaving Thackeray to spend his days watching over their cottage to prevent anyone from reviving them. 300 years later, in 1993, we see a teacher retelling this story to our high school students in the spirit of Halloween. Still, one student, Max Dennison, doesn't believe the tale to be true, even claiming the candy companies just invented Halloween. There were a lot of claims shut down by his classmate Allison, who informs him that Halloween is based on the ancient feast called All Hallows' Eve, the one night a year when the spirits of the dead can return to Earth. In response to getting put in his place, he boldly asks for a number, but she turns him down, and later on his way home, he gets stopped by a couple of bullies. Jay and Ernie, although Ernie prefers his nickname Ice. These two idiots harass Max for some smokes and cash, but he hasn't either. So instead, they steal his shoes, and getting robbed and turned down by his crush only adds to his frustration after being forced to move to Salem from Los Angeles recently. He's angered even more after learning he has to take his younger sister Danny's checker tunings, and his parents, Steve and Jenny Dennison, are going to a party at Town Hall. While they're out collecting candy, Max once again runs into Jay and Ice, who've been spending their Halloween stealing candy from other kids. They attempt to steal Danny's as well, so she threatens them with her older brother, but Max doesn't plan on picking a fight and just gives them his half of the candy, furious that she just embarrassed him in front of half the guys at school. Max yells at her, prompting her to run off crying, so he quickly apologizes, excusing his anger as being caused by homesickness, and she ultimately forgives him. Hence, they continue sugar trading with the next house they end up at, turning out to be Allison's, who begins discussing the Sanderson sisters once again after Danny claims to have just learned about them in school and reveals that her mom actually used to work at the Witches Museum before it was shut down due to some spooky things happening. They're looking to still get it in with Allison. Max suggests that the three of them check out the abandoned Sanderson house. She agrees, so they make their way to and into the cottage but can't see anything due to the darkness. Luckily though, Max finds a collection of lighters, one of which you use as the last light switch, allowing them to see the witch's ancient relics, such as a reference book, which Allison claims had been given to her by the devil himself. Max also explains Spotswood Allison as the black flame candle, which a legend says on a full moon can raise the spirits of the dead when lit by a virgin on Halloween night. But Max still doesn't believe any of this stuff is real. So we suggest sliding the flame, but before he can, he's attacked by a black cat which is Thackeray Binks. Hoping to prevent the witch's resurrection, Max manages to get it off him though and decides to light the flame anyway despite his sister's pleas not to, resulting in the carnage getting all sorts of spooky, and the sisters made the long-awaited return, forcing the kids into hiding. The witches soon recognize their presence, though, with Mary sniffing out Danny's location. Still, before she can suffer the same fate as Emily did all those years ago, Max jumps out to confront them, only to be quickly subdued by a friend, but a persistent attack prompts Allison to attack Mary with the witch's broom and a frying pan. At the same time, Danny puts a stop to a friend by whacking her and Sarah with a bag of candy before they can counterattack when a friend is ambushed by Binks, allowing Max to regain consciousness and distract them, which by tricking them into believing the sprinklers the burning rain of death. This gives them an opening to run for it, but he slips on the way out and is confronted by Banks. So I have to take in their spellbook at the behest of Banks to escape the carnage and join back up with Allison and Danny. The witches eventually realized they'd been fooled. Upon realizing their book and had stolen the head out to hunt the kids down as to gain eternal life, they'll need to recreate their potion and suck the life force out of the children of Salem, since if they don't get it before sunrise, the spell that brought them back will wear off, and they'll be sent back to their grave. Meanwhile, Binks has brought the children to a graveyard since the witches are unable to step foot on hallowed ground, and explains the backstory of one headstone, in particular, that being William Butcher's son who'd been killed by a friend after he was caught cheating on her with a sister Sarah. She poisoned him and so does mouth shopping, then explains the book's purpose within containing each of Waterford's most dangerous spells and that they must not let her get it to prevent that from happening. Max attempts to burn it, but it doesn't work because it is protected by magic. Just then, the witches arrive, flying in on their brooms, but since they're unable to set foot in the cemetery, Winfred instead casts a spell that revives her old lover Billy and sends him to chase after them in the book, forcing the kids to hide in the sewers. Though not before Max knocks off Billy's head with a tree branch. The witches attempt to sniff them out, but the children are too far to be detected. So while Billy searches through the sewers, they begin searching for children to capture. This ordeal has proven stressful thus far, so they take part in a calming circle, which is quickly interrupted by a bus approaching. Still, the driver appears to have the hots for the trio, specifically Sarah, so he gives them a ride into town and even allows Sarah to control the wheel. As she's driving, the kids begin making their way back above ground through a sewer drain, with beings exiting first. Still, just as he does, Sarah comes speeding down the road and runs him over, momentarily killing him before he quickly regenerates since his curse won't allow him to die. Meanwhile, the sisters exit the bus after Mary declares she smells children. But once outside, they're unable to find any, confused by their Halloween costumes. Fearing that she's lost her powers, Mary begins having a mental breakdown, for their extreme looks to have made a turn for the better when they stumble upon what they believe to be the home of their master. Still, it's actually just a guy dressed up as Satan. Wonderfruit soon realizes this and why all the children are wandering around in costumes, with All Hallows Eve having become a night of frolic as he describes it. After finding their brooms gone with them, having been stolen by 3 young girls, Justin Sanderson's sisters' costumes, frustration is compounded. Still, luckily they received some good news, with Mary again being able to smell Max, Danny, and Allison, who, throughout this, made their way to the party, a town hall, to get some help from his parents hopefully. But they have a hard time believing their story about 300-year-old witches. And before he can convince them it's true, the witches also arrive at the party. So he jumps on stage to warn everyone they may be in danger. Still, one of her just plays it off as an introduction and begins a musical performance of her own version of I Put a Spell on You. This performance does put a spell on the audience and forces them to continue dancing until they die. The kids are luckily able to escape before they can be trapped in a never-ending dance though, and manage to come up with a plan, first luring them into their high school weeks of children prison for children and tricking them into entering the school's pottery kiln, which they then lock them inside of and burn to their presumed death. So the heroes celebrate their victory and return to Max's house with him and Danny taking him drinks as their family pet. Max also appears to have finally gained the interest of Allison. She snuggles up as they fall asleep, but as they're sleeping and the witches are revealed to have survived their attack and once again head out to hunt them down, leading to an encounter with Jay and Ice in which Jay calls the sisters ugly. So they take them back to their cottage and trap each in a cage there when a friend calls for a book to let its presence be known, an elastic effort, and it works as Baka Max is he and Allison had awakened and began looking through the book. Although they've been told not to open it earlier by Banks in hopes of finding a way to help him return to his human form, which ultimately unable to do that, they do limit so can be used as protection against the witches, and Allison takes advantage of this fact once the witches arrive on a new pair of brooms along with a vacuum for Mary. But it doesn't help her stop them from knocking on Max and capturing Danny Banks and the book, and as the witches head back to their cottage Sarah sings a song. The cast a spell on all the children of Salem allows them to their home, and once there they're finally able to recreate the potion, but luckily Max and Allison arrive just as they're about to force Danny to drink it, and Max once again tricks them, convincing them that the light from their car is actually the sun rising, so he's able to rescue Danny and Banks and pour their potion out onto the floor before driving off, with the witches only realizing they have once again been fooled as they're leaving. Well, luckily for them, there's still enough potion for one child left which they could use on one of the children they've lured to the cottage with Sarah's song. Well, one of her it still wants to go,